Greetings and welcome to my budget. So today I'd like to just share the principles of what I do a little bit and then more so how I format my budget with Excel. First of all, I'll pause my little doggy right here. So just like any budget, I have categories and the maximum I'm allowed to spend on that category for that month. Or it's the exact amount, like my cell phone's an exact amount that comes out every month on the 10th. And this is just an automatic row that gives me the pay period amount, which just means I get paid every 2 weeks. So it'll show me what I have every 2 weeks for that, which is in this case just half of that. 2 weeks is half a month. So now for the fun stuff, what I do here. So first and foremost, let me go ahead and go to the view tab here, freeze panes, freeze top row. That way we can have that constant there. First of all, I have this row of months here, January, February, so on. And then I have this column of the categories that are reflected from the budget tab. Now, what I do, right? So I have an expense tracker app on my phone where, let's just say for fuel, every time I buy fuel or gas, I will log every time I buy that. I'll create a log on that expense tracker app. I'll leave a link in the description for that if you're interested. It's Apple and Android. Um, And what that allows me to do is at the end of the month, I can log my actuals here. That way I can compare my actual to my budgeted amount, which is 200. So as you can see over here, it'll show whether in the second row here, whether I'm over and by how much, or whether I'm excess and by how much. So for instance, I could put 212. That means I'm $12 over. I could put 190. Whoops. I could put 190, and that means I'm $10 excess or under, which is what we want. So that's how I do that, have this set up. So let's get into formatting a little bit. I completed this expense type here, which is my essentials or needs, and I'm working on my wants right now, or my non-essentials, as I call it. I kind of already started one here, but I'll go ahead and start a new one here. As you can see, I inserted the row already just by right-clicking and then insert, which just to show I could do that here. So I go under the row, insert. Oh, I don't know what that was, but now you can see I have a second underneath the category. Then of course I like to merge and center. The next thing I do is I reference my budget sheet. So for my nicotine tobacco products, I'll highlight this and I'll use an equals, and the first thing I reference is the name. And then I put this little and in here, open a quotation, put a space so it's not right next to it. Open a bracket, give me a little money symbol, close that quotation, do an and. Now I'm going to put the actual monthly amount here, and now I'll just do an and, open quotation, and put that closing bracket. And that will give me the name, and I just like to put in parentheses so I don't have to reference my budget every time. I can just see it right here real quick. And then of course I right click, format, protection, lock, since it is a formula based cell. Moving on here, now we have this row here to work with, right? So first thing I like to do is the one just above it. I will copy, not the cell, but Control A, Control C, the actual formula and paste it into here. And then I'll just go ahead and drag the references to be right above in the actual spent cell here. Okay, we got that referencing correct. Now, of course, the budget reference in the formula above is referring to the budgeted amount for internet. So I need to fix the reference for nicotine tobacco products here, and currently it says J41. So if I go here, the nicotine tobacco products is here at the top left, it is J42. So now I can come into this here, and I'll just go ahead and manually do it since it's just a couple here. Just go through like so to J42. Bop, and then last but not least, like so, and then I didn't seem to miss anything good. So now we got our referencing correct. Now notice how I have the budget reference locked and the actual spent reference is neutral. That is because for this whole row here, the budget reference is a constant, um, but the actual spent reference will be um, adjacent to the top of this. So when I drag this along, using a little box thing on the bottom, you'll see it keeps the budget reference but updates to the cell right above it our actual spent like we want. So now let's move on here to the next thing, which is conditional formatting. So for conditional formatting, there's 3 conditional formattings I do here. And I go to conditional formatting under the home tab, highlight cell rules, more rules, use a formula to determine which cells to format. And with that cell selected, I'll say equals search, open bracket, open parentheses for excess, comma, and then I'll reference itself. And the format I like to do is just this nice little green color here. Okay, okay. And I'm going to do the exact same thing, except this time I am going to say search for over in itself. And if it's over, give it a nice little red color, just like that. And what this does, since I programmed the formula, which I'll get into in a sec here, to say over or excess, I am conditional formatting it to search for those two things, like so. And then last but not least, I will go to equal to under highlight cell rules, and if it equals nothing, I will go to my custom format and I give it this nice little gray color. That's just what I like to do, just like that. Now, you notice how if I say if it equals nothing, be gray, and there's 2 things in my formula, which we'll go over my formula right now real quick. So the first thing I'll go over is that if nothing has been logged in here yet, it is blank, it will display nothing. If it equals the budgeted amount exactly, it will display nothing. So for this category, the exact amount would be 125, so it will be nothing. If I go over that, it'll be red and show me by how much. If I go under that, it'll show me excess and by how much. And that's how I set that up. A little bit about the formula, moving on. First thing I do is I say if my actual spent is greater than my budgeted amount, then obviously I have an open quotation here, display over, and I close that quotation, and I do the budgeted, pardon me, the actual spent amount minus the budgeted amount, and obviously I just round by 2 there, that formula there, and I just add a little close bracket. Likewise, if it's under the budgeted amount, it's different. I'll say excess, and I will do round up, and this time I do the budgeted amount minus the actual spent. That way, if it's over, being that it's greater than the budget amount, or likewise, it will always give me a positive result since I'm manually entering in my own little pluses and negatives just for visual sake. That's kind of the rundown of how I do my formula there, right? So I will go along and I'll do all the conditional formatting for each one of these, uh, which is very tedious because for some reason my format painter or copy and paste will just copy and paste the one that it's on. I won't do all 3 of the separate conditional formattings. So if you know a way that I could copy the 3 different conditional formattings on the one cell without having to manually do it for each one in here, then let me know, that'd be great. So there you go. Moving on, right here we have our, I'd like to merge and center this and bring the text down a little bit. This is our actual spent, as you can see here, for 2020. And what this does is it simply just gives me the sum of everything I've entered in thus far, which I'm almost done with this year. I'm on December already. And what this does simply is it shows me how much I'm at for spending on that so far in this year. It's like a real-time thing at the end of every month when I log in these cells, it'll show. An additional note for this is there is conditional formatting. three separate ones as well, being these here. And I can go ahead and show you what I mean by this here. I'll copy this, highlight this, cell rules, more rules. I'll use a formula, and instead of 07, I'll reference this. Now, if this is less than the budget amount, which was 40J42, oops, if I can get that, it was 42, I believe. And if it's less than that, what we want to do is we want to say good. That's excess if it's less, right? Like so. So if I do, let's say -444, just something crazy here. Well, let's do even more than that. Like that, it'll give me this. Uh, well, you can make it actually change the block color. I just like to do it as, I'll paste it in here again with green text. I apologize for this. So I reference that, and the format I'm going to do instead of fill is the font to be green text, like so, if it is less than. So now if I do that again, you can do it however you like. Obviously, it still remembers the last thing I put in, but I just like to have it just the text for that one. I already have enough green borders going on. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear the rules from that. The reason that I've not implemented anything with that yet is because I project that my formulas for conditioning will change. And that is due to budget changes, meaning these will probably change in the future too, which I have to do this. Um, and what I mean by budget changes is there is going to be, I'll show you at the bottom, pardon my mess, I'm still working on all that. I'm going to have a budget change log down here using a VBA code to where every time I change values in here because maybe I got paid more or a bill is lowered or something like that happens, I can go and update that. I can select the month I'm on, like I'm on December right now, and then finalize changes. Obviously, I've not made that macro yet, but and then once I finalize changes, I will have it put that in my budget change log, and these will then reference that budget change log instead of just the raw budget amount. And that is because, for instance, uh, if I've had a set amount, like here's a good example. My bill has been $90 for my phone all year, and it wasn't until October that I just lowered it to like $75 here. But you can see that now it's saying it's over because it's considering the new value instead of remembering that for September it was $90 and so on. Meaning, in a nutshell, just because I update my budget in November doesn't mean I want to back reference and change all my overs and excesses down here. So that's something I will do with VBA coding in the future. For now, I just kind of have it set where it's at. This is a prototype. Hopefully I'm using this by next year. So moving on here, the next thing I do here is my projected. And here's how I do a projected formula. First of all, I like to merge and center. And I'll go ahead and copy this formula down from up here, not the cell of the formula. Oops, you have to actually click into it like that. Okay, and then I'll just move that referencing since it's just a couple of these down here, like so. And, oops, wrong reference. The, the actual spent row right there. And what this does, first of all, this formula here just basically makes my budget more versatile because I could do put this as 12 to be since January to December projected. But what this does is it looks for the first entered value in a cell. And let me undo all this. So what that means is like just because I start in September doesn't mean I want it to be times 12 here. I want it to be times 4, right? So what this does is it gives me times 4 when I actually started logging something in this array. So you can see if I log any value here, my projected will change. So consider that. It will be times 5. Um, Now, what I multiply by is the average considering zeros. Unlike my average column here, which just tells me the average I spent monthly that year. Again, I like to merge and center that. And this will give me the average excluding zeros, so I can just see the raw average amount for the whole year. The reason that this considers zeros for my projected is because 0 is definitely a considerable value, given that, if you have a budgeted amount to spend that month and you spend 0 on it, you have all that money available. So that's definitely a considerable amount. Now, for my average, like I said, I'm just saying if error, give me 0, meaning if there's no value for it to work in there, give me 0. And this is just average if it's anything but 0 for this array. Pretty straightforward. And then last but not least, I have my 2020 over and excess column here. And this is, I think, the most useful because this basically will give me the running balance of all overs and excesses, essentially the running balance for the whole year here. And how I do that, first and foremost, like this one, I actually copy the actual cell above it, I paste it here. And the reason I copy and paste the cell is because it'll automatically bring all these references down so I don't have to do that manually. And as you can see, it's a lot. It is 24 separate references right there, and that's just this sheet alone. And the budget, as you can tell, is locked. And it is a very long formula. So the way I do that, right? So it currently says budget J41, but we are on, what's that, nicotine tobacco products? Budget J42. So it needs to go from 41 to 42, right? So how I do this is having the cell highlighted, I push Control H, and I will find all J, oops, I'm messing all that up. I'll put J41, yeah, that little bunny symbol there, and then I will replace that with J42. So as you can see, I'm saying find all the J41s in the cell, like you can see here, and replace it with J42. Now I'm just going to push replace once and close. And then just the one that I copied from, I'll make sure it didn't do some weird stuff and it's still J41 for that one like it's supposed to. And this one is all J42. So now we have all of our referencing correct. The next thing, this has conditional formatting of its own. We'll go to conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, more rules again, use a formula. This time I'm going to say equals, if this cell is greater than 0, that's good, that means that is excess. So I go back to my fill, I do my nice little green color, okay. Do the exact same thing as you would expect, except now I'm going to say if it is under 0, that's going to be that nice red color because it is over. Okay, and last but not least, if it is equal to 0, just give me that nice gray color. Pretty simple for formatting there. Another nice little addition I do here is I have a box underneath with this formula, and I'll go ahead and copy the formula and I'll paste it into that cell. And since it's just a couple, I'll fix my referencing here on the automatic array here, enter. And what this is doing is it's just counting how many overs are in this array. So that just gives me a raw number based on how many overs there are. So if there's 2 overs, in this case 3 overs, it'll show 3. And my quotation, I just say put it next to over. And I do the same thing for excess. I search for excess. So how many excesses? It's a number. And I put it next to this quotation here for excess. And this will just tell me, it's a nice visual for how many months or I am over or excess for that whole year. So like I am 3 months over this in this category that year and 0 months excess, which is not exactly good, but that's how I do that. And then last but not least here, I like to pretty it up. I'll give it some nice borders there, fat border there and there. And then I like to give it a fat border all the way up to the name. Also, since this is an automatic formula-based array, I will format this as locked under the protection tab, like so. And again, I'll go back and conditional format all these to be the same as this does here. But for now, it's kind of where it's at. And toward the bottom, as you can see, or like for all expenses, this one just includes all expense types, or like each expense type. I haven't got to this one yet, but I'll go ahead and highlight all this, and I just like to do a nice little purple text, make it bold, so on. Now, the nice thing about sum, which is what I use down here in each one of these, is it will ignore any values that are mixed with text. Like it's not going to consider these values because it is mixed with over. So it'll just give me the values of, of each of the actual spent cells here, which is what I want. So like for November, it's showing me the total I've spent on my essentials or my needs for November, which was $641-ish. And then this one here for 2020 actual just shows me for the whole year under essentials. And then here is just an overall expenses, uh, what I've spent. Now, I think the most important one, and this does the same thing. It has uh, the sum of all these positives and negatives added together, and it will give you pretty much a running balance for that whole expense type, and down here for the whole all expenses. Now, that's useful because I can see kind of where I'm sitting. Now, this isn't accurate. Please don't judge me. You know, the actual data isn't exactly accurate, and I'm just kind of in testing phases right now. But this will give me the running balance for the whole year. So that's kind of how I format that and do everything. Notable thing is my income. And I'll go ahead and go over some of the differences here. The first difference, well, first of all, I'll tell you the actual is the same, projected is the same, average is the same. The only difference is in here, and this is for income versus expenses. I say if the actual spent is over what I budget to make, then that's over, which is a plus. That's a good thing in this case, over. And I'll do the actual spent minus the budgeted amount. If it is under the budgeted, or if what I actually spent is less than what I budgeted to make, then it is under, which is negative, which is a bad thing. So I'll show you here. This is what I actually have budgeted to get. I have a salary, so it's constant. If I make less than that, it'll show me I'm under, which is bad in red, and by how much. And it'll reflect that as a negative over here. And then if I make more, it'll show me green, and that it's over by how much. It's good to have over in income, right? So there's also a big difference in this one. So for here, it's the same as these were down there. As a matter of fact, the conditioning is the same. But the difference I have here is that the actual earned minus the actual budget is flip-flop, because if you notice here, it'll show the budget minus the actual spent, where in here it'll show the actual earned minus the budgeted amount. And that's true for even if it's over. That way it'll give me either a negative amount here, which is just that parentheses in red, or it'll give me a positive amount. Well, that was a lot. So that's the only difference I did in here, was I just flip-flopped the budget and the actual earned for every single one. It was kind of tedious, but only had to do it once because I can do the copy method I did down for all these. Only differences there in income. And yeah, so that's kind of how I I format all my stuff. Leave any comments for suggestions or how to make this better, or any VBA stuff I can do, any tables I can do to make this, I can freely add or take away budgets, or sorry, categories, without having to worry about messing up formulas or anything. Like, that's something I got to start looking into. And also, this is just saying inconsistent formula because it's considering these cells here, so I can just ignore those. Um, but yeah, that's how I do my finances every month. Very simple. It seems hard. Like the Excel part's hard, but once you actually have this, it's very simple. Makes it very easy for me to visually see. I can look under this month for October and see like where I'm at. So it's very useful. And then in the future, I'll definitely have my nice little update system here for when I make changes. That's all I got. Let me know what you think, and until next time.